This is really actually a deceitful place, this exploration place. You know what they're going to do? They are going to let kids have fun and fool them because they won't even know they're learning something.
On a 20-acre site along the banks of the Arkansas River in downtown Wichita will soon rise Exploration Place.
Exploration Place has been a community vision since 1989.
A world-class signature science center.
The Children's Museum will move into Exploration Place when it's finished.
We wanted the finest architect we could find.
And we had a little problem, McLean Boulevard.
I thought this building in itself is a science project.
This is kind of a cross between a college campus, Microsoft, and somewhat of Town East Square. It's about the size of Cincinnati, I think.
It really is, isn't it? Not everything was fun and games out here during construction.
The flood of '98 had them wondering about what damage the water had done.
The grand opening will be on April 1st.
Oh, I think it'll be here a long time. It'll be part of history. It's just starting now.
25 years later is hard to grasp. I don't recall the passage of that much time. And yet here we are expanding Exploration Place dramatically. When we started, everybody was thinking bigger. I was desperate for some way of reducing it to its simplest terms. And so we came up with a list of 10 things we thought this science center would bring to Wichita. Entertain, educate everyone, every day, downtown, signature building, park setting, on the river, tourist attraction, stimulate development.
Welcome aboard the SS Waterway. I'm your skipper tonight, Brian Fry, and I'm a lifelong Wichitan. I had the honor to serve on the Wichita City Council, and Phil shared with me the once-in-a-lifetime list. It allowed me to think beyond the box, that it's okay to not settle, to continue to make sure you're doing something that the community can be proud of.
Whoa! My name's Adam Smith. I'm the president and CEO here at Exploration Place. Phil's once-in-a-lifetime list was sent to me by Brian Fry, and when I read it for the first time, it felt powerful. It aligned with everything that I'd been trying to do in terms of leading the organization into the future. And it was helpful to understand where Exploration Place came from.
Members of the community, local government, area businesses, and various foundations not only supported Exploration Place with generous financial contributions, but also gave their invaluable input for a center never before seen in Kansas.
I'd like to ask Dr. Aldecena, president of the, well, I'll let him tell you what he's president of.
I was president of Exploration Place from the end of 1993 through the middle of 2004.
I'm Susan Skibba. Phil Frick invited me to come on to the Science Center project in 1993.
The status of the project in 93 was that the land issue was resolved and also enough funding to be able to continue with the project.
Once Mrs. Wallace had made the commitment of the $10 million, after the site had been designated as the West Bank, we then needed to move ahead with an architectural search.
I was absolutely astounded at the number of architects around the world who were interested in this work.
We ended up with a so-called short list of 6 of the finest architects in the world.
I drove them around Wichita. They all wanted to see the Frank Lloyd Wright House.
In the end, it was not an easy pick.
E is for engineer.
ETS is for ethobiologist.
Physician.
Linguist. Exclamologist.
Researcher.
Artist.
Teacher. Immunologist.
Ornithologist.
Neurosurgeon. P is for physicist.
Limnologist.
Chemist.
Ecologist.
Oh, wait, something is wrong here. Something is out of place. A for architect.
I'm Moshe Safdie. I'm an architect. I arrived early, a few hours before the interview. I had not been to Wichita before, and this was a chance to go and see the site. So we drive to the site and start walking around. I said, "Where's the river?" "Well, the river is there." It's beyond that 4-lane road. And then I crossed the highway and I walked along the edge, and all of a sudden I saw the beautiful curve where the waterfall is, the cascade. And it just was wonderful because it looked like it's coming at you.
Moshe's presentation was the simplest. He had a whiteboard up there, magic marker. He drew the 2 rivers, and then he made an X.
I said, this is a magic spot right there.
Moshe Safdie was such an easy guy to work with.
It wasn't just designing a building. He really wanted to know what we were trying to achieve.
Mr. Safdie paid close attention to the site and making it work, and we picked him.
When Exploration Place is a 2-page color plate in his autobiography, I think we know this is a very significant architectural statement as a building. When I think about the overall impact of Exploration Place, it is definitely multidimensional. My predecessor, Jan Luth, I think was a real leader in understanding that the true benefit of a place like Exploration Place to the community is not just being a place to visit, which of course we always will want to be, but there is a role that we can play in taking ourselves out into the community.
I was going to do a cheer, but I just want to do it now. Can we all just cheer for tonight? When I joined the organization, it didn't take us long to say, hey, we got to take a look at what other science centers are doing around the country, understand the depth and breadth of the educational programs that they're doing. And then, of course, we went even beyond because we were the premier science center in the state. Well, how are we serving the state with outreach programs? That was the best way.
The first 2 words of our mission statement are to inspire. We really appreciate the people that are in our school districts teaching every single day. Part of what we're trying to be is an asset to them, because if the kids are inspired, they're going to be a little bit more attentive on the everyday teaching. I see it here in the building when kids are coming here. I see it when our educators go out into the community.
My name is Jose Vigil. I go by the name Mr. Jose, however, when I'm working with students and youth. I think it's just easier for them to remember my first name. Today we are traveling to Belle Plaine Elementary School, about 30 miles south of Exploration Place. This is part of my weekly route on Thursdays. It's called the Kansas All-Star Scholars Program.
I spoke to the superintendents who in many of these locations are smaller school districts, and they loved it. They were really supportive of it.
The further away that our educators travel from Wichita, the more appreciated they are. I can see it in the feedback that I receive.
I went all the way to Goodland, Kansas on one of my trips. I've been to north central Kansas, to northeast Kansas. We have gone basically all over the state.
It's the sustained, regular, constant contact every week of these kinds of experiences that make a difference. And I'm so thankful that it's continued.
It's hard because it's a lot more efficient to deliver Exploration Place programming from Exploration Place.
Oh, that was a great one!
The people that support our educational mission when we do fundraising campaigns, it's actually supporting some really, really valuable outreach programming.
The enthusiasm of the kids, it's infectious, especially when they start making connections and verbalize it.
All right. Look, I got something.
Okay, now.
I got one.
I love
science.
After a careful search, Moshe Safdie of Boston, Massachusetts was chosen to be the design architect, and Schaefer, Johnson, Cox, and Fry were selected as the local project architects.
Hey, how are you?
Sam, good, how are you?
Hello.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Hi, fine. How are you?
Pretty good.
My name is Sam Fry. I'm a local architect here. Moshe was really kind of excited about the idea of building the building out in the water.
Well, I recognize that the magic spot is on the other side of the highway. The first move was to diagram the building on the assumption that McLean is moved and go to the city and make a case for it.
That turned out to be a little bit controversial, and I had it in my mind that if we don't move the road, the project will probably not go forward.
When we would attend the city council meetings, I was always hopeful because I couldn't believe that anybody could turn this project down.
And there was but one day in the 8 years that I was involved, only one, that I thought this is not going to happen.
One meeting with community people where those driving down McLean objected.
I went back to my office that day, kind of sad, and my secretary handed me a pink call slip, a little piece of paper. It was from a city council member. 3 words: don't give up.
So we finally convinced the city that we could reorient McLean Boulevard.
Against all odds, we succeeded.
My reaction was essentially relief. And so once that was in, Moshe could then finalize his design.
It was a very long journey. If you look at my sketchbook, it's 3 sketchbooks. It goes on and on. I got fixated on the Jantar Mantar, which is a scientific observatory. My objective was to find a generative geometry that conceptually, like the Jantar Mantar, would produce complex forms of a building.
A toroid, which is a donut shape. In his biography, it talks about how it was transformative for him.
We're trying different compositions, and then the toroid was a eureka moment because the plan is irregular and you could put a flat roof on it, but when we carved the toroid out of it, it created the most beautiful forms in the silhouette. It's almost we didn't design it.
We wanted a building that when you saw it, you just felt you had to go there. And that's what we got.
Very vividly, I remember coming here for an 8th grade field trip the spring it opened.
When Exploration Place first opened, my family, we got a year-long membership.
Being able to visit a science museum as a kid, that established the foundation of my interest in engineering and that kind of a career.
I was definitely one of those kids growing up who liked to take apart things just to put them back together. And so science museums is one of those places you could do that maybe in a more controlled environment.
When I meet people that are now adults that's telling me stories about their experience of Exploration Place, they're passing on that generational understanding of what Exploration Place is. One of my favorite exhibits that kind of exemplifies the kind of work I do is the composite simulator that's just to my right over here. Aha.
This is kind of what I do. Like say these bags, I get to figure out, where's the best way to put this in the airplane where, things are nicely balanced.
What I love about Kevin and Stephanie's story is that it reminds us that the thousands of kids that we interact with every day, there is some level of inspiration going on there.
You can't get an aircraft wing at home. Like, that's not possible.
Being able to play with a riveter, have that hands-on tactile experience, that's an intuitive way to understand the science at an age before you can really understand the calculus behind it.
I have to say that it has been a joy to work on this project. This was not just another science center, but its mission, the objectives it set out were really very exciting. I'd like to ask Phil to help me unveil the model.
No matter what architects tell you, you never know what you're getting till it's built.
The construction process had its fascinating aspects.
Nothing had been built like this in Wichita in a long time. Everybody was excited, really excited about it. But at the same time, working with a renowned architect like Moshe Safdie was pretty intimidating.
Getting architecture concrete was certainly the big challenge.
The difference between everyday and architectural concrete is simply the finish.
I wanted nicely finished concrete that looks like stone, like limestone.
Moshe Safdie said that the concrete on the Skirball Museum in Los Angeles that he designed is his standard. And I actually flew out to LA twice and toured that museum. I came back and I told our team that I think we can do better concrete work than the skirball.
Obviously, I went to the site every day. Some buildings that have concrete, the forms are built someplace else and then just brought to the site and put in place. In this case, the wall materials were created really literally on site.
I've never had a job prior to or since this project that we had to assemble and pour an actual mock-up of the exact concrete of the building to finally get to a point where the design team and ourselves were confident that we could replicate that throughout the project.
The aesthetic appearance of the architectural concrete on the building was a higher standard than I have ever been involved in, to the point where we were using stopwatches and timers on the processes.
The flood of '98 was a fairly dramatic event in that there was a lot of people were hurt and there was legitimate concern.
Halloween of 1998, a Saturday afternoon. The day before, it rained, and we were watching the weather. We got as much equipment and everything out of the way that we could.
And we had a crane between the island building and the Lamb building, and there's no way we could get it out. That flood put that crane underwater.
All we see is the water about 3 foot below where I'm standing with right now, which is about 3 or 4 feet above the 100-year flood elevation.
Well, what was going to happen to Exploration Place? We really, honestly did not have a concern because Moshe knew the potential.
The walls can resist the flow of the water, the walls are waterproof, and the floor, just in case, is above the flood.
We did not have any damage to any of the project whatsoever.
I was very, very grateful. I think we all were.
And it was pretty ugly, but you deal with it. That's just one of the challenges that come up. After we finished the project, Safdie was the designer on Crystal Bridges. Basically, it's the same kind of structure as Exploration Place, concrete. And Moshe told him to come to Wichita to look at Exploration Place because that's his standard now. It wasn't Skirball Museum in LA, it was Exploration Place.
Looking back, pretty successful. The contractor rose to the occasion.
We were able to formally open Exploration Place to the public, interestingly, on April Fool's Day, 2000.
It was very, very fulfilling to see how beautiful the project had come out.
This was done harmoniously. Everybody was after the same thing. I call these happy projects.
We were all very proud of the whole team and the work that had been done.
Let me borrow some words from last week, some of you heard. Ralph Waldo Emerson observed that an institution is the lengthened shadow of one person. Exploration Place will always be the lengthened shadow of Velma Wallace.
Mrs. Wallace was the key donor to Exploration Place.
She was an amazing woman. She was always open to a discussion or an idea.
Velma Wallace was very involved, sort of just enthusiastically pushing this forward.
Velma Wallace was a legend in our city.
I was tremendously impressed by her commitment to the development and the good of the city, whether it was through Exploration Place or whether it was the Wallace Scholars at WSU.
She graciously provided me a full ride scholarship in college, and that's what landed me in aerospace.
Velma was amazing. She treated us like we were her grandchildren. It's such a gift, honestly, and I never want to take that gift for granted.
Just thankful that I had the chance to meet her, get to know her a little bit. She was so happy to see the place really flourishing.
I think Mrs. Wallace understood doing something of this magnitude, how it would almost define the city in a different way.
The wonderful thing will be that for generations, beyond your generation, my generation, there will be youngsters coming through here that may be inspired to become a doctor, a scientist, an animal caretaker. I mean, there are so many things. So thank you all for participating. It is a community project, and without all of you, this would never have happened.
What I appreciate about the original vision for Exploration Place is that they went for 100% of what they were trying to accomplish. And I see EP2 as just a natural continuation of EP1. We're saying we aspire to bring something absolutely world-class to this community. We're not going to settle for second best.
From the original building to EP2, this is the dream that I think was thought about in the early planning, and to see it come to this point and the future is amazing.
Thank you, Phil Frick. This would never have happened without his leadership, his tenacity. Remember, he had a dream. He never let go.
So, as of 12 o'clock noon today, what we all thought was ours is now yours. Take care of it.
Entertain.
Entertain.
Educate.
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 Everyone, every day.
Downtown.
Signature building. Park setting.
On the river.
Tourist attraction.
Stimulate development.
And I think we hit all those.